I'd like to call the Board of Works to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Nina, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Lynch.
Here.
Member Collins.
Here.
Member Lewis.
Here.
Member Young Johnson. Member Williams.
Here.
We have the approval of the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. We have no unfinished business. Under new business, we have special events. I believe item 1 and 2 are being removed at this time. So we will move to item 3, Castle Subaru Pet Adoption Event. Is anyone here? Yes. You can come up to the table. There's a mic there. That mic is on, so you don't have to push the button to talk.
Thank you. So Castle Subaru does an annual pet adoption event every year. We want to expand it and make it bigger. So we're hoping to be able to rent Founders Square on October 8th to do that. And we'd also like to try and do not a true 5K, but like a furry pet event walk from like Castle Subaru to Founders Park. So Tara and I are new to this, and so we're kind of hoping to get some direction and the approval to do so, with your guidance, of course, and make this a bigger community thing, since we like to do a lot of stuff with the community. That's all we have right now, so we're kind of, if there's questions or whatever, I guess.
I do have a question, maybe comment. Hi, Scott Williams. Have you selected your route for this event?
Yes, I've mapped out a few different routes. It looks like the easiest route would be walking from Castle Subaru down Willow Creek would probably be the only problem, to right past Tate's Place where the trail comes in, and the trail to Founders Park.
Okay, so you're going to use the trail, not any of our roads or highways?
Willow Creek would be the only road to the trail from Subaru.
So you'll need help crossing Stone. So you'll need help crossing Stone, Robbins, before you get to the trail.
Yes,
And then you'll need help crossing Central on Hamstrom to get
Yes.
to the park.
Correct.
You probably have to talk to the police department about that.
Well, that's kind of one of the good things which we do anticipate doing, and we'll get back with the board on that, is because the K-9 unit participates in this. They're a big part of this, and they do demonstrations at the event. So we were definitely going to reach out to Officer Peel and, make sure that we can get that to happen. And I'm sure it probably won't be a problem, but like I said, we're new to it. We're not quite exactly sure the steps on how to take care of it, so that's why we're here.
Quick question, is it pertinent that there's no interruptions in your path? There's traffic signals on the sidewalks along Willow Creek, and if it's not important that.
It's not important.
If you could stop at a traffic signal, that would be beneficial there.
Right, because it's just a furry fun run. So it's not going to be timed or laid out specifically for the time. So if we have to stop, that would be fine.
Stop at the intersections.
Yes.
Correct.
And pardon my ignorance, because I don't know how this is going to work. Are you going to have pets with you on the run at all?
It's going to be optional, yes. They can bring their pet, because it is a pet event ending at the park and, well, ending at the park, but the pet event is beginning at the park, so.
And when you're at the park, are you having a festival there, or that's where you have the adoption? What?
Yes, there'll be vendors set up, craft vendors, food vendors. There'll be probably 4 of the local shelters, like Hobart Humane Society, Giant Paws, Lakeshore Paws. They'll be there with adoptable pets in their booths. And then, what else was I gonna say? Obviously, we have the K-9 unit there as well, and a DJ. We were planning on having a DJ or maybe even the radio station if that's approved as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, it sounds like you have things organized, I think, as Member Lewis just indicated, that you get with the Portage PD, and you clearly understand what they're going to require, and then get back to us.
Okay.
You've done this in a very timely fashion. Thank you for doing it in that manner. Your event's not till October, so
I do have one question. If in the event that we cannot do the walk, do we still need to be here for the approval to use the park then for that venue? Is that correct?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
Just that we understand the logistics of the event.
Okay, fantastic.
Can we approve the use of the park for that day contingent upon them doing that?
You can approve it all contingent upon coordination with the police department and their approval, if you want. I mean, it would seem that it's just a logistics thing. If the police can assist, they will. Yeah.
And the park as well?
And the park as well, Madam Mayor.
Have you contacted the park about the availability of Founders on the 8th?
Yes, so far that date is open. We had to come here to make sure that it was approved by you folks, so, yes.
And I would suggest you go back to the park at some point to get approval from them. I usually have folks come here too, even if it's park property, because you're going to need services outside the park, like the police.
Yes.
You know, maybe street to block off, whatever, but yeah, so you're going to want to do both.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the pet adoption event and the 5K with the pets for Castle Subaru contingent upon approval by the parks and your coordination at the police department.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Sounds like an exciting event. I'm looking forward to it.
We are too.
Okay, we have a solicitor permit request for Summer Song. Someone's here from Summer Song, please come up to the table. Did you wish to speak?
Pardon me?
Did you wish to speak?
I would, yes. I have a complaint. There's like 2 or 3 other ice cream trucks rolling around in Portage that don't have any license. And I feel if I have to pay $145 for a permit, they should have to do the same.
I'm not familiar with any other ice cream trucks, is the board?
Yeah, I have,
No.
we've had that problem last year too, and I've even called the police, and the police will verify that they have come out there. We had one that was from Valpo, we had one that was from Illinois, which he's over here now. He was just in Ogden Dunes last week, and they run him out of there because he has no permit, and people are saying that he's selling more than ice cream out of the truck. And then there's one that's called Days and Means that has a blue and white and pink truck that's even in the event, when they have the event on 4th of July or all these events up here at the park. And sometimes by the time when we see them and we call the police, when the police get there, they're gone. And I know the police are busy. They don't have time to run, all over running these people down. But I just get aggravated. I've been doing this for 25 years and, it's just get monopolist. I mean, I could not even come and get a permit and just ride, but with my luck, I'd be caught. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention if there's anything we can do, because I'm losing money, and not only am I, the city's losing money.
I guess my question is, now you're limited to the city streets, and I know that there's been some issues with you coming into the Founders Park.
Yeah, because we didn't understand it. My daughter was on the truck. We don't understand why we're not in the event. We're on down where the park is, where there's a lot of children that aren't even going to the event. And we don't understand, we didn't understand what the rule was for that. I mean, if the event is one thing, but down at the end of the park is another. So we didn't know what the rules are, what the law is for that. That's why I'm here too, to find out just what's going on there.
So I don't see anybody from the park here. Has the park spoken to you about it? I believe that someone from the park did.
He spoke to my daughter, and one of the policemen wasn't sure of the rules. He was going by the lady, which she's sometimes not very nice talking. She said that the rule is 200 feet apart, away. So I don't know, to me, where the children are is 200 feet away. So and we can't, I told my daughter, don't argue with her because it's not, it's not worth it.
This one doesn't work? I'm gonna come up here with you here.
Okay, as long as you behave yourself.
I will try. All right, I might be able to shed a little bit of light on this. I know that our patrol units were dispatched to Founders Square, was it last Friday or, for the complaint of the ice cream truck being there. From speaking with the patrol officer, they asked the business to leave, which they did based on the ordinance, and then we were notified that they came back, and it sounds like at that point there was some type of a verbal disagreement between representatives between the park and whoever
Yeah.
was driving the truck.
That was my fault. I
Now,
told her to
we
go
did not
back.
get called back there at that time, but we have since asked our code enforcement to send out a letter to the company, letting them know that they had violated the ordinance essentially twice on that day, and that there would be some repercussions moving forward if it happened again. So I believe John sent that out to them. Yes, sir. Okay, thank you.
Summer Song doesn't, Blue Bunny and Summer Song doesn't have anything to do with this anymore. I own my own truck.
Okay, I'm only talking about what happened the other day
Oh,
there, so.
And my daughter was on the phone with me, and I was the one that told her, will you stay there? Because I don't know, like I said, I didn't know anything about these rules.
So John, is there a distance that they have to stay away from the park? If she's down by the splash pad, can you come up and explain that to us?
Unfortunately, I can't.
That mic doesn't work.
Okay, sorry. I was informed after the fact that, about the incident on the 3rd, with them being there. At that point is when I became aware that the transient merchant ordinance had been amended with a specific section of what the park requires to get a permit, and they set that standard. So the park would have to say what they're setting for the standard. My only involvement was that any transient merchant is supposed to have a transient merchant license from the city. To be on the park property, the amendment provides there's an additional permit that has to be from the park to be on the park property at the event. So there are actually 2 permits necessary. The transit merchant license are issued through the clerk treasurer's office. And again, that's a standard that they set of whether it's a door-to-door, whether it's a food truck or whatever, what standards have to be met in order to get that license. My only involvement comes is if we get a call for a merchant that's operating. Generally, the ones I get are the guys who pull over in a van selling, sports memorabilia or that kind of stuff somewhere. At that point, if they don't have the merchant license, the enforcement says for that type of person, they get a 1-hour warning, and then the police can come and confiscate everything they've got if they're still there. Generally, they get out of there instead of waiting for the police to come. As far as the food trucks and what they require on that, if they're operating within the city without not operating on the park property, they'd still be required to get a transient merchant license, because the ordinance provides any place within the city. And again, this is something where they would go and apply for the license at the clerk treasurer's office, and that's where it would be handled.
We do Woodland Park for 20-some years, all the parking. I've never heard of this other license. All
Yeah.
we've ever got is a permit from the city, because that's all that was ever required from us.
Right. My understanding is that the part for the park was a recently passed amendment to that ordinance. I don't have the date that it was passed, but again, it's an amendment to section 151 about transient merchants. The amendment specifically says what a food truck is, and that they have to get this from the park to be on the park property. I don't see anything in the ordinance that specifically says what those standards are.
Excuse me, ma'am, are you Marilyn?
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure I had the right person. So my recommendation, and I don't know if the board would concur or not, is to go back to the park department and clearly understand what's required by them when you're on park property. We have changed the ordinance. I chair the ordinance committee. We did take that topic up, and the council agreed to change the ordinance. So in order to be current and understand completely what your responsibilities are, I would recommend you go back to the park department, and they can tell you exactly what you need to do to comply.
Okay, but if we can't do any of the parks, then shouldn't they lower the fee for doing the streets? Like the $145?
So, yeah, we're talking about apples and oranges here. I want to make a couple of things clear. One is the control of the park property is under the control and authority of the park board. So what you're getting from the city is a permit to operate in the city, okay? But the jurisdiction for the parks themselves are the Parks Department. And in fact, the ordinance, which was advertised and published, kind of lays that out. So often folks will say, I didn't know the rules, or I didn't know about this, that, or the other, but ordinances, much like state statutes, it's really, if you're going to operate in a city, it's really incumbent upon you to know the rules, right? Now, we'll help and explain as much as we can, and certainly the Parks Department will as well, I assume. But really, you need to know those. And to wit, the ordinance that Member Williams is speaking to, it says any mobile food vendor operating within a park shall at all times fill out an application by contacting the Portage Parks Department. So you really need to follow up with them, because they
Now,
have
where do I go for that?
the Portage Parks.
No, I mean, in the building here. Oh,
Be over at Woodland Park.
Woodland Park, okay.
Yeah. So they have control of the parks, and that's where you need to go pursuant both to the ordinance and because they have control of the parks.
Okay, and they will tell me if there's no events that we can go in there and serve the children that are in the park.
I can't speak to what they will or won't tell you. All I can tell you is that the ordinance that the city passed specifically says the approval is solely at the discretion of the Parks Department. So you'll have to inquire upon them what their rules are, and they'll help you through.
Okay.
So I believe what we're looking at here, though, is this the clerk treasurer's portion? So we would not be addressing the park one right now, just the clerk treasurer's portion. So we would need a motion to approve the clerk treasurer's portion of this two-part permit.
Marilyn, did you say you are or not part of Summer Song?
No.
Well, I guess my confusion.
Well, I'm part of them. I mean, they're still the thing of it, but I have my own truck.
So this application is for Summer Song.
Yes.
So in your agreement with Summersong, Maryland, you provide your own truck? Is that a part of the agreement with Summersong?
Yeah, I leased a truck from Somerset. I mean, it's my truck.
Okay, so they provided the truck that you lease from them.
Right.
This is a solicitor's permit application. Do we need a background check on this permit?
I've already had it back. Diane has everything.
Has the PD Police Department reviewed that background check?
So my question was, I saw that this is, looks like it's dated for today. Was there a permit already for the first half of the year, or, so this is, okay, that's the background, okay, yeah. Yeah, so we do have, it looks like we have everything we need for that. I noticed on here that it's asking for this permit to begin on June 14th, which I believe is today, so was there a permit already in effect prior to that?
Nina is saying that it's like a 6-month because you don't do the ice cream truck in the winter months.
Well, I was only asking because I know this event that occurred was last week, so was there even a permit on file at that time when we were called out? Okay, so it's just a renewal then essentially, okay. So I would say, yeah, everything that, sounds like, talking to my captain, everything's good as far as the background check on our end. I think the only issue was the change with whatever's going on down there in the park, but otherwise, as far as the normal operating in the city, we're good with.
And Nina, what will be the fee? Because I see that they want this permit to go to December 14th of this year on the second page. Is that correct?
No.
Is this the
She's already
6-month
paid the
permit?
$25 fee for the application. I got to double check to see what the amount is.
So that's just the application fee, correct?
Because you can get an annual permit or you can get a 6-month permit.
Okay,
And off the top of my head, I don't remember the amount.
all right. So she has to pay that yet?
Correct, she's only paid the $25 for the application fee.
Okay, thank you. All right. Is there anything left to do on this permit application other than paying the 6-month fee? Okay.
Well, I make a motion to approve the solicitor's permit application for Summer Song.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Joetta, seconded by Scott. Is there any further discussion?
Just reminder to Summersong that, before you can provide your services, that 6-month fee needs to be paid to the clerk treasurer's
Yeah, I
office.
understand that. They told me to wait until today.
All right, thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you.
We have a tag day request for Light of Life Food Pantry. Is someone here from Light of Light? I see this event isn't until October, so I would ask that we motion to table because no one is here to represent them.
I'll make a motion, we table this.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have award bids for the 2022 street paving and repair project.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, members. Yes, the department has reviewed the bids submitted, and it would be our recommendation to award the project to the overall lowest responsible bidder, Reith Riley Construction Company, Inc., in the amount of $2,656,957.95. I believe that Attorney Whitten has had an opportunity to review the documents, and I believe finds everything in order. I have
That's
also,
correct.
thank you. I've also spoken to Clerk Treasurer Rivas, and it appears that the funds will be available to offer a local match to the Community Crossings matching grant of $1 million.
Well, I'll make a motion, we approve the contract to Reith Riley Construction in the amount of $2,656,957.95.
I'll second that motion.
We have motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
I just wanted to go back to the solicitor's permit, I'm sorry. So the fee schedule is $200 a year, $120 for 6 months, or you can do monthly for $50.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the cybersecurity police renewal.
And Madam Mayor, if I could, for the cybersecurity policy renewal, I've had an opportunity to speak both ad nauseum with Clerk Treasurer and with James Hazard from Samuelson Insurance. You'll note that this is a substantial increase from prior year's policies. Unfortunately, we kind of knew this was coming with all of the unfortunate hacking and ransoming and holding hostage of information that's occurred not just across the country, but certainly in this area. Rates have skyrocketed. So Mr. Hazard bid it out because the one that we had before indicated they wouldn't renew. So this was the lowest he could find, notwithstanding the jump in cost. It was the lowest that he got back from prospective providers.
Do we know, Attorney Whitten, if, given the fact that this premium now before us is $32,290, that the coverage was similar to what we were getting in the past for $7,900?
I believe it is. So, yeah, the only thing that's really changed is the cost.
And that's 1 year.
That's 1 year. So if approved, which I would strongly recommend that it is, we don't want to be uncovered here. I mean, one uncovered event can be 7 figures. We'd find ourselves bonding to try to get hostage money. But if approved, then, of course, the city council is going to have to worry about where to find the money. And I think Nina and I have talked a little bit about that, and she's got some ideas she can present to the council.
So this one expires, the current policy expires when, Nina? The one we're under right now? When does it expire? Do you know? Okay.
If you want, we could, I think we just have to be careful what we say.
Oh, okay.
We're good. We're good as we sit here today for coverage, but we need to take action today. If we didn't take action today, then we would find ourselves in some problems.
Got you. Thank you. All right, make a motion that we approve the, I guess it's Cowbell cyber insurance quote for $32,290, contingent upon the city council and some recommendation from the clerk treasurer's office in how this premium will be funded.
I'll second that motion.
We have motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We have the Baker Tilly contract renewal.
This is just a renewal they do send us every year for the existing master agreement. And it's only billed time and just for items performed, I guess.
So does this agreement have a not-to-exceed clause, or we just billed hourly based on the work they perform by the particular individuals at Baker Tilly? Because I noticed that the rates do vary, hourly rates.
Correct, we only pay for what services that we use.
Do we know approximately what we were billed under our last contract?
I would have to, I've done a report before and sent it out, that Councilperson Podgorski had asked. I would have to look at that.
All right.
I mean, did we use there's also, I can't always control what we use their services for, because also, there's oftentimes that the mayor or a council person has reached out to them, so it's not just my office. It also includes continuing disclosure for all of our bonds that we have to report on Emma.
Yeah, and candidly, given the situation that this administration walked into, they've been essential.
Thank you, Attorney Witten.
So is this the group that helps us prepare when we send everything downstate?
Not necessarily, I mean, they can if we ask for that service. Right now, they don't do that. They don't do our annual finance reports. In 2020, they did assist the council with the Vids budget for 2021, so that part.
Nina, you said we pay for the services that's rendered, so are you saying that there's like no annual fee or, okay.
And so this is for our grants, all those things, they're helping us keep within the statutes and regulations and,
Yep, exercise advice.
okay. Is this an annual contract?
Did the hourly rates stay the same from last year to this year?
I believe so. I'd have to pull the other contract.
I believe they have. I looked through it and spoke briefly with the clerk, and then I spoke briefly with representatives of Baker Tilly. It seemed to be just another renewal, same kind of thing.
I'll make a motion, we approve the annual contract of Baker Tilly.
I'll second that motion.
We have motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have the firefighters Local 3151 appeal on insurance.
So yes, Madam Mayor, and members of the board, so this grievance was submitted. It was denied at step 1. It was denied at step 2, which was me. And they are here today for step 3 under the contract. And it has to do with language construction of the contract or interpretation. So, Scott, it's your grievance.
Did everybody get a copy of it? I apologize, I did not have all of the emails. Jamie and Joetta, do you have a copy? Okay. And so unless there's any, you guys have any questions about some clarification, I'd love to answer them.
So let me just, maybe I'll kind of give a little backdrop, and correct me if I'm wrong or misstate. I don't want to say something that Scott doesn't agree with. But, so it's a contract interpretation issue. And if you note from the firefighters' grievance, it's a question of, it's not a question of insurance coverage. It's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about a retirement benefit for cost reimbursement of the retiree's insurance. And under the contract, the grievant indicates that the language in the contract says that the firefighters who retire shall retain insurance. And then it goes on to speak to the cost reimbursement. I think, Scott, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think what they're indicating, best I can tell, is that if a firefighter has insurance that maybe includes family, that they believe that the language in the contract means they get to retain the family policy and we reimburse. Now, again, we're not talking about whether or not they get to have family insurance coverage. It's really a question of how much do we reimburse. So I gave a legal opinion early on. It went through the grievance procedure so far. The reasoning behind my step 2 denial was that I have indicated that it doesn't speak to, in my reading, and this is, again, there's no statutory or legal requirement outside the contract. This is a benefit that was bargained into the contract. So it's really a question of what does the contract say. This is a four corners document state, so you look to the document. So my reading of it indicated that it started with, and I'll tell you, firefighters who, this is right out of the contract, firefighters who shall retire shall be entitled to retain health insurance coverage by selecting a health insurance plan approved by the city. So that's the first line of that section. So I believe the grievance says retain means they get to keep what they've got. My reading was the firefighter retains coverage. It doesn't say firefighter and family. Now later on, interestingly enough, it talks about what happens with the spouse once the firefighter reaches Medicare age. And it indicates, and I'm paraphrasing, that the spouse shall be able to retain health insurance coverage and get the same benefit that the retiree gets. So I read that contract early on because a lot of the contracts have similar language, frankly. But my initial reading of it was, you got to look at the intention of the parties. I wasn't there when this contract was bargained, but one reading could have been the firefighter gets the benefit when they reach Medicare and lose that benefit, then their spouse gets it. I didn't read it that way. I was very liberal to the fire department in that reading and said, well, let's just assume that they meant the spouse gets it upon retirement and he or she doesn't lose it when the firefighter retiree reaches Medicare. So I read that part very liberally early on, and I've stuck with that, frankly.
Right, I agree, all that's correct. So about 6 years ago and you were around, Sue and Scott, when Chris Stidham said that when the retiree hits Medicare, the spouse is no longer covered, that means the spouse had always been being covered. And it's the same language that we have in our contract today. So the city was providing coverage for a spouse and a retiree with the same words that I'm reading today.
Well,
Traditionally, most retirees don't have young children. And so I just think we're seeing a little bit of a shift. Right now, we have 3 pretty recent retirees that have young children. And then we have one that has been approved for a perf disability that also has young children. So this hasn't really been an issue in my career so far at all. Most of the retirees have just been old enough and their kids have been out of the house. But spouses have always been being covered with the language that says firefighters who retire.
Let me finish my sentence, because I wasn't done. So what I was saying was, because of kind of what you're saying, the issue with the spouse's coverage, I didn't make it an issue. I wrote an opinion that basically said, hey, look, I think the intention of the parties was just that the spouse be covered. So that's not been an issue. I haven't rendered it. Now, we had some issues with, not so much the fire department, but one or two, but there were some issues with some problems that I had to render an opinion and correct because there were some things not done exactly right before, but we remedied all that, and I think Scott's correct. Now, so my reading was correct of his grievance, that they're asking us or you to interpret this contract language to mean children. And that's what we're down to, right?
Yes.
So my reading at step 2 was it's not in the contract. It doesn't extend to the children. If they wanted it to extend to children, they would have said there are 2 shots at the apple here. One, the first line, And then the second part of that same paragraph where it talks about what happens with the spouse, again, both of those are silent as to the children. So it's a great topic for bargaining, but it just isn't in the contract now. And I think there's some feeling that I somehow do or don't want them to have it. It doesn't make any difference to me, but it's incumbent upon me to read the contract and render an opinion based upon what's in the contract, and I just don't see it there.
Well,
We disagree on that.
Mayor Lynch, when you were on the council, when the city was self-insured, were families covered when people left then?
And you know, Scott, I really don't remember. I'd have to go back and look at that paperwork because,
Because when the city was self-insured, the retirees got 100% of their health insurance covered because, and that's where I think where the language of maintain and retain happened, because there was no break. They retired and the city still provided their insurance. So when we switched to 150 about 9 years ago is when the language was the last time the language had been changed. So I'm sure, I'll say, our fault, city and fire department, for not clarifying that families were covered, but I still don't think it changes the fact that if a firefighter is working for the city of Portage and their family insurance is being provided, that when they retire, if they're going to maintain that plan and they have eligible family, that they're included. I read it a little differently than Attorney Whitten. Also, this isn't a thing that is, it's going to happen more, so I can understand that a language change would be something that we would need to clear up. But at this point, we're talking three families, and I don't know, I don't have all of their numbers for their plans, a few $100s. Also with that, one of the retirees, the insurance that they've chosen is not breaking it down. They're not giving a spouse and retiree number. They're giving family and single. And family could be 9 kids, and they have 4. So they're not breaking it down and saying each person is worth X in a premium. So, I mean, even if the board doesn't agree, or they agree with Attorney Whitten, how are we figuring out what the reimbursement is when the insurance company won't break it down?
So I think that might also be the language in the contract that says a plan approved by the city. So if you can't break it down, we're not going to reimburse. I mean, it's a benefit specifically granted in this contract.
One of the best benefits
It
that
was
the
just, can I
city of
finish,
Portage
please?
gives to people is
Can I
that.
please, Scott, please interrupting me, or quit interrupting me. I haven't
I'm
interrupted
sorry,
you.
I
so
was speaking to
I
the
understand,
board.
but please quit interrupting me. I don't do that to you. So it's a benefit in the contract. The contract doesn't speak to children. It's incumbent upon the plan to be able to break it down if they want the reimbursement. It's not incumbent upon us to break it down. So on the one particular instance that was just brought to my attention, they need to break it down because we're not going to pay a benefit that's not in the contract, which simply, it's not legal. So my opinion has been if it's not in the contract, you can't do it. Whether I agree with it or not, if it's not in the contract, you just can't do it. It's public money.
It is in the contract. It's in the contract. I'm not an attorney, but it is in the contract. That's why the Board of Works probably should take some action. We can move on.
So you said the plan doesn't break down?
Some don't.
Some
of the plans don't break it down.
Okay.
yes.
The plans have to be approved by the city. So we pick that vendor. We pick them. Well,
Right.
So what happens is they propose the plan that they're on and we approve it or not. So one of the reasons to not approve it, I guess, would be they're not breaking it down for us. It hasn't happened much. Scott's right about that.
Yeah.
Most plans break it down. I mean, come on. But we have encountered one that hasn't, and if they can't break it down, then we're not going to approve that plan for reimbursement. I mean, that's what the contract says. And I think Scott's right about one thing. Maybe we do bargain it at next bargaining. Maybe we do go. Now, I will say this. In the other 3 contracts that I've been bargaining, they've asked for this, particularly for the police. They have similar language. They've asked it to be extended to dependents. And we didn't bargain that in. It's an unfunded, unbudgeted liability. So that was the reasoning for not bargaining into the police contract. But they tried.
So Dan, what I'm trying to sort this through in my mind. If the firefighter retires and his wife is covered, but the children are not, and they need to get insurance for the children, can they tail it onto the existing insurance and then pay that additional fee themselves?
So really, again, it's not a question of the ability to get health insurance. That's not the issue. The issue is whether the city is going to reimburse some of the cost, the net cost to the retiree. So whether or not they're eligible for coverage, whether or not they're eligible for a family plan, whether or not they want to put their kids on the plan or not, that has nothing to do with this contract language. This is not an Affordable Care Act issue. This is not any of that. This is simply whether or not they get reimbursement for their net cost. And so the language in this contract very clearly says the firefighter retires and is able to retain insurance, then goes on to say what happens with the spouse. It has to be approved by the city. I'm telling you, if the plan cannot break down the cost for the firefighter and spouse, it's not a plan that we can reimburse.
Well, Scott, I think it's something you might look at your next bargaining, but, clearly, I mean, we have our budget chair sitting here, was not budgeted into the budget either. So it's something, since your contract is coming up, you may want to bargain, but I don't see how we can do it right now. I don't see, according to what our attorney is telling us, we really cannot do that right now.
I would agree, Madam Mayor. I think our attorney has reviewed this, and we rely on his expertise and interpretation of all of our contracts.
So I will either need a motion to deny.
Either a motion to deny or grant the grievance at step 3.
Right.
I make a motion to deny, based upon the interpretation of our attorney's interpretation of the contract.
I second that motion.
We have motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, Nina, I will ask you to please call the roll.
Member Collins?
Yes.
Member Lewis?
Yes.
Member Williams?
Yes.
Mayor Lynch?
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
We have bulk item appeals. Is Randy here?
Madam Mayor, or no?
Well, thank you, Randy. We have claims. Nina, I believe we have 2 sets now.
Yes, we have the standard claims in the amount of $789.17. There was a dollar adjustment. We had a credit on an invoice. And then we have the second register, which is part of the ARP funds for the PD. So I just want to keep the ARP funds on separate registers. And that's in the amount of $239,700. And that includes the 5 vehicles that was approved at the last Board of Works.
Let's take those separately and begin with the accounts payable register.
Sorry, I make a motion that we approve the accounts payable vouchers register for $789,080.76. I will note that there is a claim in here for $90,000 for a new piece of equipment that I understand is going to be paid out of wheel tax. I'm not sure what page that was. I should have marked it. But
Yeah, and that was approved during budget discussions.
right, that's on page 13. That's for the Vortex machine.
And just to let you know, Scott, that machine is in operation, and we watched a demonstration the other day, AJ and myself. Absolutely a great machine. I'm hoping it does what we're hoping it does. Fill potholes and crack seal. So Scott, just to make a correction, that was $789,079. There was a $1 adjustment on there.
I'll second the motion.
We have motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have the ARPA motion for the police vehicles.
I'll make a motion, we approve the vehicle purchase through ARPA in the amount of $239,700.
It also includes 2 invoices that I've received from Assistant Chief Uzelak for the AED machines in the police vehicles, too.
I second that motion.
We have motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there any other business to come before this board at this time?
Yes, there is, Madam Mayor, if I could have a moment. So I have asked the board to consider the police collective bargaining agreement today. So if I could, I'm going to go out and sit there with the chief and run through it real quick. It's already been approved by the police department union, and it's already been approved by the city council. But since it's a contract, I would like for this board to take action on it, so I'm going to go through it real quick. Okay. For those of you who don't know, this man to my right is Chief Candiano from the police department. All right. So there's some language change in here that I thought maybe we want to chat about real quick, but this is a 3-year contract, so retroactive to the first of this year. So as you'll note, it's from January 1, 2022 to December 31, 2024. Not a ton of changes in the contract itself, some cleanup language and some scheduling language, and I'm just going to roll through this real quick. So Chief, if you see something that jumps out, holler at me. All right.
So we just cleaned up some language on shift start times, just kind of clarifies what time they come in. It also leaves a little bit of discretion for the supervisors for a staggered start time so that we don't have a full crew coming in as one's going off. Obviously, calls don't care what we're working, so they come when they come. So we just cleaned that up a little bit. For both us and the Detective Bureau. Mm-hmm. Or I'm sorry, for Patrol and the Detective Bureau.
Mm-hmm. You're not in patrol anymore.
I know, I'm gonna get yelled at by the detectives now. And then we had an agreement with the union based on how to fill overtime shifts. There was a little bit of a discussion between the amount of time before we would post them, or if we just fill them first come, first served kind of thing. Obviously, you know, things pop up and sometimes we need to fill a shift immediately, and sometimes we have some leeway to put it out and fill it according to the standard that we both agreed on. So we just changed some language there for a little bit, or a little bit of language there. And then you'll see with exchanging shifts, essentially we had a lot of unnecessary language in there. We just pulled stuff out and cleaned that up. Doesn't really change the way we're doing business, but there was some confusing stuff in there that didn't need to be in there.
A little bit of language of change to clarify what goes in a personnel file. adverse material, basically, goes in the file. We're getting there. A little bit of a change on the ability to file a grievance. I'm seeing this in contracts elsewhere already. It's a question of whether or not the union can bring a grievance on behalf of the whole body. Before that, they would, if there were 6 people that had the same issue happen, we would be dealing with 6 different grievances, sort of tracking all 6. This language change will allow them to file 1 grievance on behalf of the body. It's better for judicial economy, both for the board and the union. Same language there. No additional holidays. You guys didn't ask for Groundhog's Day or anything like that, which was shockingly pleasant. And then we keep on trucking here. We clarified some things that were already occurring, accumulated vacation at separation. They also get their accrued sick days and personal days as part of their severance. And then, yeah.
So we changed some wording, essentially when you were using major illness time, vacation days, or vacation time, things like that. I believe it said work day, so we changed it to work shift. So essentially, if you're working a double that day, you'll be using 2, whatever it's major illness, sick time, whatever, for each shift, rather than essentially getting a 2-for-1 deal just because you're scheduled a double. So we changed that up so that it accounts for the actual shifts worked.
I'm just trying to find anything. The insurance rates changed, but it's because the insurance rates went up. You'll note, I'm sorry.
So is there language in, we just went through this with the fire department, and you said where you've addressed it in here, exactly what page is that on?
That page. So if you look at page, let me see here, 17.
15.1, it looks like it's.
Yeah, so if you go to the section that's called 15.1 health insurance, you'll see, and theirs was different, police were different going into this, but it talks about the same for all retired police officers and spouse. The employee shall pay, get this, the employer shall pay 85%, so it's very specific. And then it also says what happens when that officer reaches Medicare age, the spouse retains. The reason it says employee or retired officer and spouse is to clean up that notion that I said originally. One reading that might mean the next city attorney might look at it and say, wait a minute, it says retiree, and then later on says the spouse kicks in when retiree reaches Medicare, so we clean that up here. But notwithstanding all of that, it's not extended to dependents. And that was a point of bargaining. They asked for that to pretty much the end, really. And then there's some change to disability. So a police officer who becomes disabled on the job with 20 years or more of service will be responsible for 0% of the net cost of the insurance. That's a different thing with this contract, but it really is, it's for the officer that is injured in the line of duty and has 20 years of service. Thankfully, it doesn't happen a lot, but if it does, that's the benefit.
Just a stupid question.
Sure.
If they become disabled, younger than Medicare, what about the spouse?
So, interesting thing about PERF is, that's a great question. So, PERF calls it PERF retirement, even if you go on disability. It's PERF disability retirement, so I've been looking at it that way. And then when they get that age where they vest, and then it just goes to straight up retirement, so kind of the same. Not a stupid question, by the way. It's a good question. It's been asked several times. The big fish in the pond here is the wage increase. It's a 3-year contract. First year, 4% increase. Second year, 6% increase. Third year, 8% increase, except for senior mass patrol officer, we can't raise that one with the change. That's the retirement, that's the number or the salary that retirement's based upon. And the state has frozen that to a point, and I won't get into the devil in the details, but everybody else gets 4, 6, and 8 over 3 years. Now, you had indicated, well, no, go ahead, Chief, you can talk about the lateral.
So a couple things that we changed. Previously, we had a rank of probationary officer, first class officer, then master patrol officer, and then into our promotional ranks. So what we did was we removed the probationary pay. So essentially, you get hired in at a lower rate that first year, and then once you got your first year, you moved up. So what we were pushing for was just eliminating that probationary salary and starting at that first class pay. And essentially what it comes down is to competitiveness. When we're offering a job that's, you know, thousands of dollars less than our neighboring communities, it's a problem for us. So by eliminating that, now they're not getting their pay raise after the 1 year, but they're already at that higher rate. And so essentially, the cost of the city is not much because it was only that low rate for the 1 year, but I think the benefit to us to be able to recruit people is huge. So, and going along with that same line, we created a lateral position. So essentially the lateral position is if you've got 3 years of experience at another police department, you come in at the lateral pay, which is the essentially the master patrol officer pay that you receive at 3 years. Now, this doesn't affect any vacation time, seniority, things like that. You still all get those benefits as a brand new employee, but you're coming in at the higher rate. And again, what we were finding was it's pretty competitive right now. A lot of places are hiring, lots of retirements, lots of turnover, and the pool is shrinking, unfortunately. And so, you know, we've been the victim a little bit in the last couple of years of people leaving departments, and we've seen a lot of other departments able to pull people in that had experience that have, you know, for whatever reason are leaving. And we weren't really on that competitive field because we're bringing people in again at that probationary status that like I said before, which would essentially be a huge pay cut. So,
And to clarify, this doesn't make them, I mean, they're still probationary.
yes.
It doesn't change their status as a probationary new hire under the statute. It just changes the pay.
That's it.
I think that might be, you had the same language at the lateral. You already described the lateral
Yeah.
transfer. And that's really, I think, the sum and summation of the changes to the contract, and myself and the chief can entertain any questions that the board might have.
So the city council's on board 3 years from now with the costs?
The city council voted to approve unanimously. And I think, Member Lewis, to that end, in their discussion, they're setting aside, or intend to set aside some ARPA funds to ensure that this can be funded. And furthermore, we're banking on some growth in this city, which we're seeing.
I make a motion that the Board of Works approve the 3-year collective bargaining agreement for the Portage Police Department.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. And then just to let the board know, we're still in negotiation on the other contract that will be of note to you is the streets and sanitation, which also includes the park. So that'll be the next exciting chapter of our collective bargaining discussion. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Is there any other business to come before this board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
A second emotion.
We have motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.